The stars over the Aelori homeworld shone like silver dust scattered across the dark. But tonight, those stars felt cold. The great council hall of the Aelori Confederation was silent, except for the sound of worried voices. Ambassadors from a dozen alien species sat in a wide circle, their eyes fixed on the holographic map in the center. It showed red marks spreading like fire across the galaxy's eastern arm. Every red spark was a lost colony, a fallen world, a place where no one was left alive. "The Vurak swarm has taken 3 more systems this week," said Elder Seelan, his voice heavy with sorrow. "If they are not stopped, they will reach our core worlds within the next moon cycle." No one in the room needed to be told what that meant. The Vurak were not like other enemies. They did not negotiate. They did not take prisoners. They consumed everything, ships, cities, even the resources of a planet itself, before moving on like a storm of teeth and claws. For years, the Aelori had relied on their vast fleets and skilled diplomats to keep peace. But now, those fleets were scattered and broken. Their allies had either fallen or fled. "We must send another call for help," said Tovar, the ambassador from the gentle Virens, his voice trembling. "There must be someone out there who can answer." The council had already sent messages to every known civilization within range. Most replies were the same, sorrowful refusals. Others simply never answered. And yet, desperation left them no other choice. Elder Seelan closed his eyes for a moment, then gave a slow nod. "Send it again. Send it farther. Even to the forbidden sectors." At this, a wave of unease spread through the chamber. The forbidden sectors were places no Aelori ship dared to go, worlds marked long ago as Deathworlds. One of these worlds was Sol, a star system wrapped in endless myths. Long ago, explorers had catalogued it as dangerously unstable. Its third planet, Earth, was a land of violent storms, shifting continents and life forms that seemed built for constant struggle. Even worse, the intelligent species there, humans, had been fierce, unpredictable, and frighteningly adaptable. The old records claimed they fought wars even with each other, surviving things that would kill most other beings. It was said that centuries ago they vanished from the galactic stage after some great internal disaster. Some believed they had destroyed themselves. Others believed they had simply gone silent, watching the stars in secret. "Contacting Sol is unwise," muttered one counselor. "If humans still live, they will not help us out of kindness. They are dangerous. They are survivors," countered Tovar. "And we need survivors now." The council argued for hours. In the end, fear of the Vurak outweighed fear of the Deathworlders. With heavy hearts, they approved the plan. That night, in a high communications tower above the shining capital city, engineers prepared the transmission. The message was short and direct. "To any who hear this, we are the Aelori Confederation. We face extinction. Our worlds are falling to the Vurak swarm. If you can help, we will meet you, pay you, honor you, anything. Please, we beg you." The signal was boosted with every relay the Confederation had. Its waves pushed into the deepest reaches of space. Somewhere, far beyond their known borders, it passed into the dark void where Sul lay waiting, if Sul was still alive at all. For days after, the Aelori waited. No reply came. Colonies still fell. The red marks on the holographic map spread farther each day. People began to whisper that the call had gone into emptiness, that no one remained to hear it. Then, on the 8th day, the central relay station received something strange. It wasn't a voice. It wasn't even in a known language. It was a tight, encrypted burst of sound, like a whisper wrapped in static. The engineers worked frantically to decode it, their screens flashing with symbols they had never seen. The patterns were harsh, sharp-edged, unlike the soft, flowing languages of most species. Hours passed. The message slowly took shape. It was short, only 6 words. Message received. Stand by for arrival. The engineers stared at each other. The words were written in Galactic Standard, but the structure, the style, it felt alien. Old records were pulled up, and the translation algorithms compared the phrasing to ancient databases. The result made the chief engineer's fur stand on end. The voice, the style, it matched the archived patterns of human speech. The news spread through the council like a lightning strike. Some were relieved, others were terrified. They heard us, Tovar said, almost in disbelief. The Deathworlders have heard us, but will they help us or take advantage of us? Asked Elder Ceylan, his voice grim. No one had the answer. The following night, a scout ship on the edge of Aelori space detected movement. Something massive was emerging from the darkness beyond the mapped stars. At first, the scout captain thought it was a drifting asteroid field, but then the objects shifted into formation, each one moving with precision and purpose. There were no bright colors or identifying emblems on these ships. They were dark, their hulls built for function rather than beauty. They had edges that seemed to drink in the starlight, their surfaces broken by strange angled plating. The largest vessel transmitted a single data pulse to the scout. We are en route. Hold for 3 cycles. No further explanation, no demands. For payment. No promises. Just an instruction. Calm, certain, and final. The scout captain sent the message to the council, then watched as the dark fleet vanished again into the shadow of the void, heading toward the front lines where the Vurak were advancing. In the capital, the Aelori leaders stood at the tall windows of the council tower, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, an old legend was moving toward them, and in the streets below, whispers had already begun. Whispers of a time when humans walked among the stars. Whispers of their strength, their cunning, and their unyielding will to survive. Now, those whispers carried a new edge, hope mixed with fear. Because if the Deathworlders truly were coming, the galaxy was about to change forever. The message from the Dark Fleet hung in the air like an echo that refused to fade. We are en route. Hold for 3 cycles. Those 6 words were enough to stir an ancient fear in the hearts of the Aelori Council. It was not just the mysterious tone. It was the origin. The translation patterns were unmistakable. This was human speech. Inside the Grand Council chamber, the leaders of the Confederation gathered again. They spoke in low voices, as if even the walls should not hear too much. "Are we certain?" asked Kelleran, the sharp-eyed ambassador of the Serathi. "The signal truly came from a human source?" "Yes," replied Elder Ceylan. "The language matches old archives perfectly. The structure, the word choice. There is no doubt." A ripple of unease moved through the chamber. Most of the younger delegates had never seen a human, never even heard their voice except in history lessons. But the older ones remembered. Long ago, before the Confederation was fully formed, the galaxy was wilder. Trade routes were dangerous, wars broke out without warning, and survival often depended on the strength of one's fleet. In those days, humans had been different. They had come from a planet unlike any other, Earth, a death world ranked at the very top of the danger scale. The Council's historians began to recount the old reports. Earth was not a gentle cradle of life. Its climate shifted violently. Its oceans raged with storms. Its land shook with quakes, burned with volcanoes, and froze under sudden winters. Every living thing had to adapt or vanish, and the humans, they adapted better than any. They could eat food other species found poisonous, said historian Teller, his voice slow and careful. They could run for hours without stopping. They could survive wounds that would kill most beings instantly. And they learned, always. Every challenge made them stronger. The records told stories of humans fighting predators larger than their ships, building settlements in deserts, mountains, and frozen tundras. Even their own history was filled with struggle, disease, famine, storms, wars, and yet they always came back. One reason the galaxy had both feared and respected them was their unpredictability. Humans could be fiercely kind, forming deep bonds with other species, but they could also be terrifying in battle. They were not like mercenaries. Teller continued. They fought as if every battle was personal. When they took a stand, they did not back away, even if they faced impossible odds. The Serathi ambassador frowned. And this is the kind of ally you have invited to our borders? Tovar, the Viren ambassador who had argued for contacting them, stood tall. The Vurak will not be stopped by diplomacy or soft power. We need fighters who know how to win when they are outnumbered. There is no one in the galaxy better at that than humans. But at what cost? Muttered another delegate. The question lingered. It was true. Humans rarely fought for free. In the past, they had asked for trade rights, rare resources, or military alliances, and yet their price was always tied to their goals. If their survival was at stake, they fought without hesitation, without needing gold or promises. The Council decided to prepare for their arrival, though no one knew how to greet them. Would they come as heroes? As mercenaries? Or as something else entirely? 3 days before the promised arrival, strange signals began to appear on long-range scanners. They were sharp bursts of coded data, each one different, none of them matching. Confederation encryption. Is it the humans? Asked the young Aelori communications officer aboard the watch station at Loreen's Edge. Most likely, replied the station captain. But if so, they are masking their exact position. We can't track them directly. It was an old human trick, revealed in historical records from the Age of Expansion. Their fleets often traveled under silence, revealing themselves only when the moment was right. This secrecy made the Aelori nervous. The Confederation was used to grand fleets arriving in formation, broadcasting their banners proudly. Humans, it seemed, preferred to move like shadows. In the capital city, life went on, but a quiet tension filled the air. Markets still opened, children still played in the floating parks. But everywhere, people whispered about the Deathworlders. An elderly shopkeeper told a curious customer, "My grandfather met a human once during the old mining wars. He said they looked fragile, but their eyes were like they had already survived 100 battles." A young technician overheard and shook his head. "Eyes don't win wars. Ships do. And we don't even know what they're flying." Yet even the doubters found themselves looking to the skies at night, wondering when and how these mysterious allies would appear. On the second day before arrival, a cargo freighter traveling near the border reported a strange encounter. The freighter's captain described it in his log. "Something passed us in the dark. No identification, no signal. Just a shape, black against black, sliding past like a ghost. It moved faster than anything I've seen. If it was one of the Deathworlders, then the Vurak have a problem coming." The recording was sent to the Council, and though it was grainy, the shape was unlike any ship in the Confederation. Its hull had no smooth curves, no decorative panels, only sharp angles, armor, and what looked like heavy weapon mounts. Elder. Ceylan listened to the log twice, then quietly said, "They are testing our space, learning the terrain before they strike. This is their way." The night before the third cycle began, the council met one last time. Preparations were made for a formal greeting, though some members questioned if such ceremony would matter to humans. Tovar stood near the window, gazing at the stars. "If the old stories are true," he said softly, "then they will not care for our speeches. They will care only about the battle ahead." No one argued. Far beyond the capital, at the edge of Confederation territory, the Dark Fleet assembled in the shadow of a dead star. Silent engines glided the ships into a loose formation. Inside the lead vessel, Captain Adrian Vale stood before a vast tactical display, her crew working in quiet efficiency. The Aelori did not yet know it, but humans had not been hiding all these years out of fear. They had been watching, listening, preparing. And now, they had a reason to move. In 3 cycles, the Vurak swarm would meet the Deathworlders, and the galaxy would remember why humans were feared and why they were needed. The day had come. 3 cycles had passed since the humans' message, and every sensor station in Aelori space was on high alert. The Vurak swarm's advance had slowed, as if they sensed something unseen waiting for them. In the capital city, the Aelori High Council gathered in the tower's observation chamber. The room's curved glass walls looked out into the glittering night of space. From here, they could see the stars, and soon, they hoped, their mysterious allies. "They will come," Tovar, the Viren ambassador, said confidently. Elder Salon's gaze remained fixed on the stars. "I believe you, but how they arrive, that will tell us everything." First contact in the border system of Kelros IV. A small Aelori defense fleet drifted silently above the planet. The crews were tired. 3 days of constant watch had left them weary. Suddenly, the quiet hum of the scanners changed. A deep tone rolled through the bridge of the flagship, and the sensor officer's eyes widened. "Multiple contacts." "Just appeared," she reported. "Range, 600,000 kilometers. No transponders, no standard ID." "Where?" asked the captain. She hesitated. "Everywhere. They're surrounding us." On the main display, dots appeared all around the defense fleet. The ships hadn't come from hyperspace in the usual flash of light. They had simply appeared, their stealth broken only when they chose. The comm system lit up with a short, sharp burst of data. "Hold formation. Engage only on our signal." The voice was calm, steady, and undeniably human. The fleet revealed. For a moment, the Aelori crews could see nothing but darkness. Then the nearest human vessel shifted, its black hull gliding into the faint light of Kelros IV's sun. The ship was unlike any in the Confederation. Its armor was layered in jagged plates, designed not for beauty but for survival. Turrets rested, like coiled beasts along its spine. The bow carried no markings, only a number stenciled in pale gray. 07. One by one, more ships came into view, sleek frigates, heavy cruisers, and massive carriers. All were painted in the same shadowed tones, blending into the void until the moment they wanted to be seen. "They're not here to intimidate," whispered the Aelori fleet commander. "They're here to end a war." The meeting a shuttle broke, away from the largest human carrier, and drifted toward the Aelori flagship. The small craft's engines glowed dimly, keeping its approach slow and deliberate. On board the Aelori flagship, the crew prepared the docking bay. Every movement was careful. No one wanted to make a mistake during this first meeting. When the airlock finally opened, 2 humans stepped through. They wore dark, functional armor, scarred in places as if it had seen many battles. Their helmets were tucked under their arms, revealing faces that were strange yet familiar. Their skin tones differed, but their eyes shared the same steady focus, scanning everything without rushing. The taller of the 2 stepped forward. "Captain, Adrienne Vale, United Terran Fleet," she introduced herself. Her voice was level, carrying no unnecessary warmth or hostility. "We received your distress call. We are here to assist." The Aelori fleet commander, a silver-furred officer named Ralith, inclined his head. "We are grateful, but we did not expect such speed." "We move quickly when it matters," Vale replied simply. Strategic talkin'. The flagship's command room. Holographic maps of the Kelros system flickered above the table. The Aelori officers began explaining the Vurak positions, their ship strengths, and possible retreat routes. Vale studied the map for less than a minute before speaking. "You've been trying to hold the line at Kelros itself. That's why you've been losing," Rayleigh frowned. "Where else would we hold?" Vale tapped the hologram, marking several distant points along asteroid belts and moons. "Here, here, and here. We don't wait for them to hit the planet. We break their advance in space, cut their supply ships, then crush their main force when they're blind and starving." Some of the Aelori officers exchanged skeptical glances. "That would mean dividing our forces," one said. "That would mean winning," Vale corrected. There was no boast in her tone, only certainty. The silent preparations over the next hours, the human fleet began moving without fanfare. Stealth cruisers slipped into the asteroid belts. Frigates vanished into high orbit above moons. Carrier groups positioned themselves far, from the planet's immediate defense zone, waiting like predators in tall grass. The Aelori ships that remained close to Kelros watched in quiet awe. The humans coordinated without constant chatter, their movements precise, each ship acting as part of an invisible plan. "They've done this before," one Aelori helmsman whispered. The night before battle. That night, Kelros the Foe's surface cities glowed under the twin moons, unaware of how close the war had come to them. In the orbiting fleet, tension hung in the air. On the human flagship, Vale stood alone at the observation deck, watching the distant stars. She did not look anxious, only focused. Her second-in-command, Commander Reyes, approached quietly. "Scouts report the Vurak fleet will arrive within 20 hours. Vale nodded. "Then tomorrow, they'll learn what it means to fight a Deathworlder." In the council hall back on the Aelori homeworld, the council received the first clear images of the human fleet in formation. The black ships were sharp-edged shadows against the light of distant suns. Tovar allowed himself a small smile. "I told you. They are survivors." Kaloth still looked uneasy. "Survivors, yes. But survivors change the world around them. And the galaxy may not be the same when this is over." Elder Salan's voice was quiet. "Perhaps that is what we need. The wait ends as the Kelros system drifted into its final hours of calm. The Aelori defense crews watched the empty star field where the Vurak were expected to emerge. The humans, however, were already gone from sight, hidden in their chosen positions. The comms officer on the Aelori flagship listened to the silent channel between the fleets. No unnecessary words, no noise, only one brief transmission from Vale to all forces. "Hold until my mark, then strike without hesitation." The officer shivered slightly, though he didn't know why, because tomorrow, when the Vurak arrived, the galaxy would witness something it hadn't seen in centuries. Deathworlders stepping out of the dark and into the fight. The Vurak came like a tide of steel and fire. From the far edge of the Kelros system, flashes of light tore open the darkness as the enemy fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Hundreds of ships emerged, black insect-like vessels with jagged spines and pulsing energy cores. On the Aelori flagship, the bridge fell silent as the sensors lit up with the swarm's numbers. "They've brought their full force," the tactical officer whispered. "Exactly what we wanted." Captain Adrian Vale's voice came calmly over the comm from the human flagship. "Hold positions. Do not fire until my signal. The enemy advance." The Vurak ships moved fast, breaking into smaller strike groups. They were used to overwhelming defenses quickly, crushing resistance before it could organize. This time, though, they were charging into empty space. The Aelori fleet near Kelros stayed motionless, giving the appearance of fear or surrender. The Vurak flagship pushed forward, confident the planet was within their grasp. Its commander, a towering creature in an armored shell, clicked in satisfaction. The prey seemed weak, but unseen in the asteroid belts, stealthy human destroyers drifted like shadows among the rocks. Their weapons were already powered, their targeting systems locked on the Vurak supply ships at the rear. The first strike Vale's voice cut through the comms. Mark. In an instant, space erupted. From the asteroids came blazing streams of torpedoes, striking the Vurak supply vessels before they even knew they were under attack. One by one, the enemy's fuel carriers and ammunition ships vanished in bursts of fire. The Vurak formation faltered. Their advance slowed as commanders shouted in confusion. This was not the panicked retreat they were expecting. It was a trap. "Frigates, flank them," Vale ordered. From behind the shadow of Kelros's moons, human frigates roared into motion. Their engines burned bright now, streaking toward the sides of the swarm like knives cutting into soft flesh. Close quarters chaos. The Vurak reacted fast, turning to engage the new attackers, but the humans fought differently than any force the swarm had faced. They didn't hold in tight, predictable formations. They broke apart into small strike teams, darting between enemy ships, vanishing into blind spots, reappearing with deadly accuracy. On the Aelori flagship, Commander Raylith watched the chaos unfold on the tactical map. "They're fighting like they've done this 100 times, he murmured. "They have," Tovar replied quietly from the observation deck. Human boarding pods launched from stealth cruisers, attaching themselves to Vurak ships. Within moments, life signs inside. Those ships began to vanish from the sensors, not from explosions, but from precise surgical strikes. Holding the line, the Vurak, now enraged, pushed harder toward Kelros. Their main force broke through the first wave of human ships, heading straight for the planet. That was when the Aelori defense fleet finally moved. Ralith's ships surged forward in perfect timing with Vale's plan, cutting across the Vurak's path and forcing them into a crossfire. Human heavy cruisers appeared from high orbit, their weapons blazing, hammering the swarm from above, while the Aelori ships pressed from the front. For the first time in years, the Vurak's advance stopped. The turning point. But the swarm was massive. And even with perfect coordination, the Allied forces risked being overwhelmed. On the human flagship, Vale studied the map with sharp eyes. "They're trying to regroup on their flagship," Commander Reyes reported. Vale nodded. "Then we take it out." The order went through instantly. Human assault ships broke from the fight and cut through the chaos straight toward the massive Vurak command vessel. Enemy fire streaked past them, but the Deathworlders kept moving, weaving and rolling through the storm. One destroyer took a hit, spinning out of control, but instead of retreating, it accelerated, ramming itself into the Vurak flagship's side. The impact tore open its armor, exposing its core. "Now!" Vale said. A single railgun round from the Terran flagship slammed into the opening. The Vurak flagship vanished in a blinding explosion that shook the entire battlefield. The enemy breaks without. Their commander, the swarm's coordination, collapsed. Smaller ships scattered in all directions, some trying to flee, others firing wildly without clear targets. "Press the advantage," Vale ordered. The Allied fleets surged forward. Human ships chased down retreating enemies, targeting engines, to prevent their escape. Aelori vessels focused on protecting damaged allies and finishing off crippled Vurak ships. Within an hour, the once mighty swarm was in ruins. The aftermath in space, as the last enemy vessel was destroyed or driven into deep retreat, silence returned to the Kelros system. Wreckage floated in drifting clouds, lit by the distant sun. On the Aelori flagship, Commander Ralith exhaled slowly. "It's over. For now." Vale's voice came over the comm, steady as ever. "The swarm will return. This was only one strike, but you've bought yourselves time. Use it well." A new understanding, later, in the quiet of the council chamber on the Aelori homeworld, the leaders watched battle recordings. They saw the humans' precision, their refusal to retreat, and their willingness to risk everything to strike at the enemy's heart. Tovar turned to the others. "Now you see why I called them." Keloth gave a slow nod. "Yes, but I also see why they are feared. If they fought against us, nothing could stop them." Elder Salen looked out the tall window at the stars. "Perhaps it is better to keep such power as an ally, rather than an enemy." Back in the shadows in the aftermath, the human fleet didn't stay to celebrate. They repaired their ships in silence, collected their dead and wounded, and began moving back into the dark, toward the path the Vurak had come from. On her flagship's bridge, Vale gave the final order. "Track them, hunt them, end this before they grow strong again." The Black Fleet slipped once more into the void, leaving the Aelori to watch and wonder. The galaxy had called for help, and the Deathworlders had answered. But somewhere deep inside, everyone knew this was only the beginning. The fires of the battle over Kelros IV had faded. The Vurak swarm was gone. What remained of it scattered into deep space, retreating without direction. The Aelori Confederation had survived, but the air still felt heavy, as if the war was not truly over. In the council chamber of the Aelori capital, the leaders gathered once again. The large, round table was covered with holographic projections of the battle, each angle captured by warships and station sensors. Every delegate could see the same truth. Without the humans, the Vurak would have crushed them. "They fight with precision," Tovar said, leaning forward. "Every move had purpose. Even their losses were part of their strategy." Keloth, the Marine ambassador, tapped his clawed fingers nervously. "And what will their price be?" The question hung in the room. It was rare for any military force to fight without asking for something in return. "They have asked for nothing," Elder Silan said slowly. "Not payment, not resources, not territory. That is unsettling." The unexpected arrival while. The council spoke. The human flagship entered high orbit above the capital world. A single shuttle detached and descended toward the city. It landed quietly in the central docking ring near the council tower. Captain Adrian Vale stepped out. First, her black uniform unadorned except for a small insignia on her chest. Commander Reyes followed her, carrying a sealed case. The Aelori guards stiffened as they approached, but Vale's expression was calm, almost unreadable. Inside the council chamber, the doors opened, and the two humans entered. The room grew quiet. The statement Elder Salen rose. "Captain Vale, the Confederation owes you its survival. Vale raised a hand gently, stopping him. "We didn't come for gratitude." The room fell silent again. Vale's voice was steady, her words measured. "We came because your enemy is dangerous. If left unchecked, the Vurak would eventually reach Earth. And that will never happen." Keloth tilted his head. "So you fight to protect yourselves?" Vale met his gaze without flinching. "We fight to remove threats before they can grow. The Vurak are not just your problem. They are a problem for everyone." She glanced at the holographic map, showing the Vurak retreat path. "We will hunt them. You will not hear from us during this. You may never know where we are. But if we succeed, they will not trouble you again." The box commander, Reyes, stepped forward and placed the sealed case on the table. With a soft click, it opened, revealing a small black device with a glowing core. "This is a beacon," Vale explained. "If the Vurak, or any other force, pushes you to the edge of destruction again, activate it. It will send a signal directly to our fleet." Tovar's eyes widened. "You would come again?" "If the threat is worth our time," Vale replied. The bluntness of her answer made several council members shift uncomfortably. The hidden meaning Vale continued. "But understand this. Calling us is not a small choice. When Deathworlders enter a war, The war ends one way or another. There is no middle ground. Her tone was calm, but the meaning was sharp. The Aelori leaders understood. The humans were not offering constant protection. They were offering decisive, final intervention, at a cost the Confederation could not predict. Keloth asked the question that was on everyone's mind. And what if someday you decide that we are the threat? Vale's expression didn't change. Then you will have already done something to deserve it. A moment of understanding. For a long moment, no one spoke. The weight of her words sank into the chamber like heavy stone. Tovar finally broke the silence. Perhaps that is the lesson here. If the Vurak could make enemies of the Deathworlders, then so could we, if we are foolish. Vale inclined her, head slightly, as if in agreement. Departure without ceremony, the two humans turned to leave. As they reached the doors, Elder Seelan called after them. "Captain Vale, will we ever see you again?" Vale paused, her back still to the council. "If you hear nothing from us, that means your galaxy is safe." Then she walked out, the sound of her boots fading down the hall. The council's debate. After they were gone, the council erupted in low, urgent conversation. "They are both a shield and a blade," Keloth said. "If they turn, no fleet could stop them." "And yet," Tovar countered, "they saved us without asking for payment. They could have taken advantage of us at our weakest. They did not." Elder Seelan looked out the window at the stars, where the dark shapes of the human fleet still waited. Perhaps the best way to keep such power as an ally is to never give them a reason to see us as an enemy. A quiet farewell. Hours later, from the observation decks, citizens of the capital watched as the human fleet began to move. No grand displays, no flashing lights, just silent ships slipping away into the black, their drives glowing faintly as they vanished toward the edge of known space. Some felt relief. Others felt a strange emptiness, as if they had just seen something rare and important disappear. In the streets below, an old merchant who had seen the recordings of the battle told his grandson, "Remember this day. When the dark came, and we called for help, it was the Deathworlders who answered." In the void on her flagship, Captain Vale stood at the navigation console, watching the course projection of the fleeing Vurak forces. "Set pursuit," she told Reyes. The commander nodded. "And after?" Vale's gaze was fixed ahead. "After, we find whatever else is waiting out here. The galaxy forgets too easily. We remind it when we must." The fleet shifted into hyperspace, vanishing into streaks of light, and in their wake, the Aelori Confederation was left with both gratitude and an unshakable truth. Some protectors guard not out of kindness, but out of necessity. The dark fleet was gone. The skies above the Aelori capital were once again filled only with the usual traffic of trade ships and patrol craft. The stars looked peaceful, but for many, that peace now felt strange, almost unnatural, after the storm that had passed. It had been only days since the battle over Kelros IV, but the memory was already taking shape as legend. News broadcasts replayed footage of black human warships moving like shadows through enemy fire. Schools taught children about the day the Deathworlders answered a call for help. Merchants sold small models of human ships, painted in the same, dull black as the originals. Yet, in the quiet moments, many citizens found themselves looking up at the night sky, wondering if the humans were still out there, just beyond sight. Whispers across the galaxy. The story of the battle spread quickly. Beyond Aelori space, traders carried the tale to distant ports, each retelling making it grander. Some said the humans appeared out of nowhere and destroyed the Vurak in minutes. Others claimed the Deathworlders could vanish into shadows at will. A few even whispered that the humans could fight without fear because they had already died once and returned. In every version, though, two truths remained. They came when called, and they left without staying. It was enough to plant a quiet hope in many hearts. On worlds that feared invasion, a new phrase began to spread. A simple prayer. Let the Deathworlders hear us. The Confederation's reflection in the High Council. Chamber Elder Ceylan listened to reports from across their worlds. Trade had resumed. Border patrols had been strengthened. No new Vorak attacks had been detected. They are truly gone, Tovar said. At least for now. Kaloth's tone was cautious. For now. But the humans said they would hunt the swarm. If the Vorak ever return, it will mean the Deathworlders failed, or chose to let them live. Elder Ceylan looked at the empty space in the holographic map where the human fleet had last been seen. I do not think they fail often. A quiet encounter, weeks later in a small mining colony at the edge of Alori space, a strange signal was detected. It was faint, almost like static, but its structure matched the encryption of the humans. The mining overseer played it on a secure channel. Only 3 words came through. Threat neutralized. Safe. No location, no sender name. Just the message. And then silence. The overseer sent it to the council, and though no official announcement was made, word still spread. The Deathworlders were still out there, watching. Life goes on. Seasons passed. The Alori repaired the colonies damaged by the war. Trade lanes reopened. New treaties were signed with neighboring species. On the surface, life returned to normal, but in subtle ways, things had changed. Military training now included tactics learned from the humans' battle maneuvers. Shipbuilders experimented with darker hull designs and improved stealth systems. Even diplomacy shifted. Leaders spoke more carefully, aware that somewhere beyond the stars, a species existed that could cross the galaxy without warning. The memory of fear and hope for many, the humans remained a mystery. Children asked their elders what the Deathworlders looked like. Some described them as towering giants, others as small but fierce. None could agree on the details, but all agreed on one thing. Humans carried an unshakable presence. An Alori historian wrote in her journal. We feared them because they came from a death world. Now we fear a galaxy without them. Far beyond the map-in, a sector uncharted by the Confederation, the human fleet moved through a silent graveyard of Vorak ships. Some still drifted in space, their hulls torn apart. Others were reduced to fragments. The bridge of her flagship, Captain Adrienne Vale, stood with her hands behind her back, watching the last of the enemy wreckage fall into a distant star. Commander Reyes stepped up beside her. The swarm is finished. No survivors detected in any system we searched. Vale nodded slowly. Then it's time to disappear again. The choice to vanish Reyes hesitated. Should we send word to the Alori? Let them know the job's done? They already know, Vale said. They'll hear the story from someone somewhere. That's enough. The less they know about us directly, the safer Earth is. Her voice was calm, but there was a weight to it. This was the humans' way. Help when it mattered most, then fade back into shadow before anyone could grow too used to their presence. The last signal. Before leaving the sector, Vale sent one. Final encrypted transmission into the deep void. It wasn't aimed at any one place. It was cast into the galactic dark, where it might drift for years before reaching anyone. The message read, "If you are lost, if the dark closes in, call. We will come." Then she turned away from the console. Set course for Sol. Let the galaxy believe what it will. The legend takes root months later, in a quiet farming world on the far side of the Confederation. A child asked her grandfather if the Deathworlders were real. The old man smiled faintly. Oh, they're real. And if you're lucky, you'll never have to see them. Because if you do, it means the galaxy is in trouble. The child thought for a moment, then asked, "But if they came once, will they come again?" The grandfather looked up at the stars. Only if the dark grows too deep. Only if the galaxy truly needs them. Epilogue. In time, the humans' return to the stars became part of countless tales. Some were exaggerated, others forgotten. But the core remained the same. When the galaxy called for aid in its darkest hour, Deathworlders emerged from the dark. And when the danger passed, they vanished just as suddenly. For some, it was a mystery to be solved. For others, it was a comfort. And for a few, it was a warning. But above all, it was a reminder. Somewhere, in the endless night, there were those who had learned to survive the deadliest world in the galaxy, and they had not forgotten how to fight.